Spring college season is here and the warm weather is on its way. That means it's reversible season. Breakmark is giving away free reversibles for teams that order a bundle. With prices starting at just $75, it's the best way to have your team looking game ready this spring. And reorders get a 20% discount. Get started today at breakmark.com.
Welcome to another edition of Deep Look, Ultiworld's weekly radio show about the current state of Ultimate. I'm the host and the editor, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me, Ultiworld senior editor Keith Rayner. It is Monday, May 8th. Regionals weekend number 2 is in the books. College championships coming up, but Keith, before we get to anything else, I've got a very important date for you to put on your calendar. Saturday, May 13th, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, the Detroit Mechanics play host to the Pittsburgh Thunderbirds at the Grand Rapids Christian High School in Detroit. And I just want you to make sure that you're ready for that because it's going to get all broken down on the Double Overtime podcast. They got the Mechanics Minute coming for you all season long. They're following the journey of this Detroit Mechanics team on its historic redemption arc to try to win a game for the first time in something like 5 years. And they're going to have that for you every single week on the Double OT pod. Amazing, Keith.
We got to find some great theme music to introduce that segment. I mean, we got to find something that feels incredibly apropos. So I'm sure we can come up with something, and if not us, then the audience can make sure that this segment gets the gravitas that it deserves.
It was a very, very close battle in our picks contest between us and Double OT and the subscribers, Keith. I mean, you got the final numbers for us. How close was it?
I mean, it came down to, of course, the final moments in the Southwest, which we kind of knew was possible given that we had a pretty stark difference in the Southwest, and the Southwest always finishes last. But we ended up winning by 5 points. Both us and Double OT had the same number of correct Nationals picks. We each had 31 of the 40 picks correct. So it really came down to placement. You know, were you picking teams to finish in the right place? And we managed to do that a little bit better. We finished with 122 points, Double OT with 117. And the subscribers, we had to break a couple ties with some half points for the subscribers. So I think they finished with 114.5 points for the subscribers who really got hurt. They picked like South Carolina in the AC, and they picked UCLA to win the men's Southwest. So that didn't work out for the subs, but we'll take the W, undefeated, never lost. I texted that to our editor Lindsay Sue after they texted me making fun of us, saying that we need to pick good theme music for the Mechanics Minute to be on our show. I said, wait a gosh darn second. I'm not giving up on UC Santa Cruz Slugs yet. Slugs for life, baby.
I mean, Slugs were right there. You know, they almost beat Slow. It was a close game. Crazy stuff. We're going to break it all down today.
Charlie, I do want to say, Charlie,
mm-hmm.
and maybe I should just save it for later in the show, but it's too late now. We're already going. I never doubted NC State for a second. Never had a doubt in my mind. It was a lock from the beginning. They're my rock.
I had they're my rock. Year in and year out, they come through in the last 2 years. Every year in the last 2 years, they've done it for us. Congrats to NC State on getting out of a very competitive AC. I did see somebody posted a meme somewhere. I think I was on Reddit or on Twitter or something. It was the caption was the Atlantic Coast without the Carolina Conference, and it was just a picture of the Metro East.
That's pretty good. I will say I feel like we dodged a bullet because I was like really thinking about taking William and Mary, and they finished like 7th or 8th.
Well, NC State comes through, but the big story on the weekend, we got to begin here in the Ohio Valley. Carnegie Mellon upsets Pitt with 2 late breaks to take the loan bid out of the OV. The Money Melons, Keith. They're going to have some great celebrations. I hope they bring like many kinds of melons, right? They have the, watermelons and cantaloupes and whatever. and they like break them when they get a break. Like smash a watermelon on the ground.
Dude, this is an elite celebration that you're talking about right now. You're talking. USAU may be on the alert right now for. I mean, we've seen these OVT. Think about Parcha and the chairs, right? You think if they come through doing their watermelon smashing routine, USAU is going to feel good about it? I don't know.
I think they should get a fake watermelon, fill it with real US dollars, and then smash it when they get a break. Money melons,
Gallagher
baby.
style. Do they need a sledgehammer?
So wow, huge congrats to them. What an upset, Keith. And they had gotten destroyed by Pitt back at conferences, like 10-3. And they come through and they get the win. Amazing.
I mean, yeah, look, they get take all the victory laps that you want. You have free reign. I don't fault anybody who didn't see this coming. There's almost nothing in the background here to prepare you for what we've seen out of Carnegie Mellon, but they came through in the clutch. They pushed through regionals. They lost 2 games at regionals. They lost to Penn 11-10. They lost to Case 10-9. So they barely beat Penn State in the morning on Sunday. It was a hard fought road. But yeah, they got there. They take the win in the clutch over a much more experienced Pittsburgh team. I mean, that is a pretty remarkable feat, and I think everybody's pretty excited to see a team break through this way, and one that nobody really saw coming.
And fairly, Sarah Liang, their Callahan nominee, is getting the hype right now. So we'll see. Can this Carnegie Mellon team win a game at nationals?
Let me get somebody. They posted Sarah Liang's stats on Twitter to help boost her Callahan candidacy.
From the game or from the tournament?
From the tournament.
Okay.
So she had at this tournament, she had 35 points, so goals and assists out of the 79 the team scored.
Wow.
Played 102 points out of the 133 that the team played, and obviously helped secure the bid to nationals. This is a big boost for your Callahan candidacy. We are in Callahan season. We have not mentioned that yet, Charlie. The videos are blasting out. I think there's probably like a couple left, the outstanding videos that we'll see trickle in late. I'm pretty sure voting's open right now. So if you're hyped on the Carnegie Mellon, if you're on the melon juice, time to cast your vote for Sarah Liang, I guess.
Sick win. And lots of other stuff to get to as well. I mean, I think maybe, Keith, we got to talk about what happened in the New England men's region. As we knew it was going to be a barn burner, and it was. I mean, we had multiple games, the first place game, the second place game, and the game to go all go to Universe. And when it's all said and done, Brown comes back from a huge break run late to beat UMass in the final. Both teams had already qualified for nationals at that point. And then UMass beats Vermont on Universe in the 2-3 game. Both teams already into nationals at that point. And Tufts over Northeastern on Universe in the game to go. So your final standings: Brown, UMass, Vermont, and Tufts. Brown, Keith, I've been saying all season, this Brown team is not to be trifled with when it comes to the postseason. And here they come out and they beat both UMass and Vermont. And now they're going to be in line for a pretty high seed at nationals. Their win, though, we're going to look at the seeding a little bit later, just kind of like preliminary look at it. This is going to mess everything up. And congrats to Brown. That's it's pretty gritty to come back. I think they had to get 4 or 5 breaks in a row to win the game.
Unbelievable. It seemed like for the footage I saw that it was somewhat windy. I mean, Brown beat McGill 15-14 on Saturday. So there was a lot of close games at New England regionals. I don't know how much of that was a factor of the wind. I haven't heard that it was like last year, which was borderline unplayable at points. But it definitely seems like it was breezy. But like, I mean, I'm starting to imagine a world where we have 3 New England teams in semifinals or something like that.
Well, it seems completely possible. I mean, you look at these teams, they're going to be, I mean, I'd be shocked if any of them weren't quarterfinalists unless they get a bad draw or something into nationals. I just feel like they all 3 are clearly capable of going far. It's going to come down to matchups and stuff like that, and who's healthy and all that kind of stuff. But, besides UNC, who do you look at as against any of those teams and say they're definitely a favorite? I don't say that about SLO or Colorado or Pitt. I mean, I think those are good teams, but I think that they're equivalent with UMass and Vermont and Brown.
That I'm with you, and I think this is the best evidence we've seen yet for a Brown team that, I mean, sure, it confirms all our priors. We were waiting. We thought that Brown was going to play in the long game, and we're starting to see it come to fruition. You trust the coaching staff. You trust the top-end talent. They hadn't really played with their full roster in a lot of cases, so I think the expectations for Brown are going to be pretty high at Nationals, and they're going to have a high seeding. I mean, I think all of these New England teams are going to be top, 6 seeds probably or something like that. So it's going to be pretty fierce competition once we get to Nationals with these squads. And don't sleep on Tufts. I mean, I think the Tufts looks pretty good. They get the win in the game to go, the pressure situation against Northeastern, which is played out pretty much exactly like we expected. These two teams facing off for that final spot, and a pretty dramatic final point, which has been captured in video form, I believe, by Charles Cleary. So I think that is available for you to watch online, and beautiful high definition fashion. So you can get all the gory details. There's some dramatic calls. You got hanging deep shots both ways. But it's Tufts that comes down with the win. The Sky, I think, by Zach Burpee to come away with that. Tough grab, and Tufts gets the dub.
Pretty awesome stuff. Keith, what else stands out to you from this weekend?
Well, Charlie, we hinted at the Southwest a little bit already, but there was some surprises to be had in both the Southwest men's and Southwest women's. Southwest men's, we needed Santa Cruz to come through in the end, but I don't know if they're even the lead story in the Southwest. It's got to be who didn't make it. UCLA. I think that they seem like they had a lot of momentum going their way, and things end up breaking the wrong way when they lose 14-9 in a semifinal that was the game to go for them. You make the final, you qualify. They lose to Cal 14-9. That is a hefty size loss with so much on the line. That puts them into the backdoor bracket, and they eventually they squeak one out against UC Santa Barbara in the game to go 12-10. And then at that point, they just get creamed by Santa Cruz in the final game to go 15-8. And inauspicious end there for UCLA.
And really impressive from Cal to end up finishing second, to be able to look past the drama of the bid deadline. And, obviously now UCLA is going to feel like the team that they got robbed, that they should be there instead of NC State. But, I think UCLA's got a chance to come back next year with Kirkman Davis leading the way. And if they can really stay focused, they could be a really, really good team next year. So obviously super disappointing, but how about the Slugs standing tall and giving a really, really good effort against SLO in semis, just losing, not getting that would have earned them a bid. Instead, then they got to fight through the back door for them to do it. Not having done it in, who knows how many years. I can't remember a time when Santa Cruz was any good in going to nationals. It's pretty amazing. And I'll just say it right now, for subscribers, we're going to be doing our regionals weekend number 2 dark horse picks in our, out the back segment. And I think Slugs are going to be on my list.
This was unnerving. I think that their hot start to the season has cooled off. But they came through with the wins when they needed it. I mean, they do lose to Cal in the crossover. They lose to SLO, but both of those games were super close. So I think at this point, you got to buy that the Slugs are a real team. They are competitive with top-level teams. If you're going to say that SLO is a potential semifinalist, how far away from that can you put Santa Cruz at this point? They came through, and I think this is a young team. There's some exciting young players on the team. It's like, I feel like it's one of those teams that's in the weird spot where they happen to have a couple of good young players that could be future centerpieces for them, but they don't have to be because they also have the vets who can help see the team through. So they could have a sizable window of being a nationals level team without ever really being a threat to make that semifinal leap or something like that. But I do have high expectations for them going into nationals as well, because we've seen the ceiling for this team during the season.
All right. I also want to shout this out. Stanford women, dealing with some injuries, dealing with some stuff. They come out to regionals and just absolutely destroy everybody. I mean, they crushed their pool play games, whatever. They beat Cal 15-1. They beat UCLA 15-3 in semis. And then they beat Santa Barbara 11-5 in the final. And let's throw back to Santa Barbara Invite. Stanford plays UCSB and wins 8-7. And to come to all this way, and I mean, they're just so far above and beyond the rest of this solid region. I mean, we've got to start thinking about Stanford as a potential team that could do some damage at nationals, Keith, especially with the systems that they run. I mean, I know at Northwest Challenge, they lose to Colorado, they lose to Carleton, they lose to UBC, but they have a win over Vermont there. I mean, this team is very dangerous. And I think they showed you this weekend that, they've got things clicking right now going into nationals.
They've only lost to basically the cream of the crop. They took an early season loss to Carleton, to BYU. I think those are good teams. But other than that, you're talking about Colorado, Tufts, UBC. These are the elite of the elite. And Stanford is either right on the borderline of that or in that group at this point. It depends on how much you make of that win over Vermont. But yeah, this was a dominating regionals, which is very much what you want to see if you're a Superfly fan. Never give up more than 5 goals at one of the most competitive regionals in the country. You've got to push the expectations higher with this team going to nationals. And we know they know about being in nationals. Doesn't matter who the cast is. Although many of these players were on last year's nationals team that felt like it overachieved. And many of those key contributors are back. Whether it's the names that we already have talked about, you have your Anna Fisher-Lopez's, Elena Camas, Hannah Huddleston. You have all those players, Macy Volbrecht, Amelia Farinas. A lot of these were key names that you were seeing last year's rotation. So I think this team has a really high ceiling going into nationals.
Around the other regions, lots of expected winners. UNC wins both the men's and women's AC. Michigan men win in the Great Lakes. Pittsburgh men win in the Ohio Valley. No big surprises there. Over in the women's side of the Great Lakes, though, Keith, one of the reasons that I drafted this region highly in our regionals excitement draft picks, Chicago gets the win. And we were not sure who was going to win this thing. Keith, we took Chicago in the picks, did we not?
We ended up taking Michigan.
We did take Michigan. Oh, I thought I remembered that we had. I mean, we were
in coin flip territory.
We were coin flip.
I believe Double OT literally flipped a coin. We were in the nobody feels any confidence about which one of these teams to take. And Chicago was the right pick.
And then in the New England women's, Vermont gets a 14-12 win over Tufts to take that down. Vermont looking very sharp, probably going to have a 1 seed in a pool at nationals, and trying to finally make that push through to semis that they have not been able to get to yet.
And Vermont and Tufts, I think clearly the class of the region. They were well out in front of Northeastern, who finished third and still qualified. I wonder if there's going to be some questions about Northeastern given their performance, being so far away from where Tufts and Vermont were at, and having some closer matches with the teams that didn't qualify. So they seem like they're closer to the rest of the region than they are to the elite company. And after their really impressive undefeated regular season, I wonder if there's going to be some question marks about this Northeastern team and what their actual ceiling looks like as we approach the college championships, because they have not been able to compete against some of these really top level teams. And some of their earlier successes, does beating Yale look quite as good as it did before? I mean, I guess they also beat Sidney Binghamton, but this has not been the most convincing run through the postseason for them. And so there's definitely questions, although I'm sure they're glad to just break through that wall. It means so much just to even get to nationals.
In the women's AC, second bid goes to Virginia. No surprise there. They were definitely out in front of everybody except Carolina. They lost to UNC 15-4.
Yo, shout out to American University, 4th place finish at regionals. I mean, this is the high of the highs for my alma mater. And Lily Johnson, freshman, at AU. Apparently just like roofing everybody left and right. Hyped to see it.
Good stuff. Maybe big things to come in the future for American. Over on the men's side of the AC, NC State, as you said, Keith, gets the job done. They lose 15-10 to Carolina in the title game, but beat Duke easily in the backdoor game, 15-8 final score there. Their closest game, NC State's, was against UNC Wilmington, 15-13 in semis. So ultimately, Keith, I think we kind of called this one right. It's like a lot of teams that were solid, but NC State a step above everybody besides Dark Side.
Plenty of close games, except for, man, I was looking at these days. I was like, remember when we had Maryland in the top 25? Gotta be worst site-wide call.
Yeah, wait. Let's come back to these. Let's come back to this Maryland team. Okay, what's going on? What happened to this Maryland team? What did they do?
Oh, they lost all but one of their games. I mean, which is only four games. They have
people were picking this team to like be a quarterfinalist at nationals. What is this craziness? No more with this team.
Yeah, you look at I get it. You see the top end names. You see Miles Grovick and Fred Farah, and you get excited. I don't know what happened, but not the season you expected. I'm sure there are more people unloading jokes about UNC Charlotte, especially after Cal qualified and UNC Charlotte finished 7th in the AC, which, tough ending, but like we said, a deep region. I don't know what the lowest a strength bid earning team has ever finished at regionals is, but this probably got to be in the neighborhood.
Yeah, I don't really blame UNC Charlotte for what happened here.
No, I think people piling on them is a little bit silly.
Yeah, I mean, they lost. It was a straight bracket in AC, which I love that. They lost to UNC in the second round, 15-10. That's a pretty good effort. And then they lost to South Carolina 14-13 to get knocked out of bid contention. It's really not as bad as it looks. You obviously you got to win those games against teams like South Carolina if you want to go to nationals, but yeah, I mean, that's not going to make UCLA feel any better.
No, it's not. I look, I'm not. I know UCLA is talented, but come on. I mean, they were losing their games by like 5 and 7. Like, I'm not shedding tears for that necessarily. I do. When I look at this AC, obviously Duke ended up being the first team out, but there's some talented rookies on this UNC Wilmington team, and yeah, there's some names that we've come to know over the years, but still, it's crazy to me that Cole Feldman somehow still in college. But yeah, I think UNC Wilmington could be a team to watch in the future. I got my eye on that squad.
All right, well, that does complete the entire Nationals field. The D3 College Championships start in 11 days from today, or I guess 12. And then we've got the Division I College Championships starting in about 2.5 weeks. Friday, May 26th. And so we've got a lot to get you ready for over the next couple of weeks here on Deep Look, our Nationals preview show coming up in just about 2 weeks from today, more or less. So can't wait to get to that. We are going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to take a look at the initial seeding picture. We will get new rankings from USAU. That's very important because it does affect where the seeds end up. But we'll talk a little bit about, who are the number one seeds going to be? What are we thinking for the tops of these pools? And what are some of the upsets that could shake things up down the board? Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Deep Look.
Hey, Charlie. It's Declan from Vermont. Yeah, we made nationals. We're pretty excited about it. Yeah, I mean, go chill. That's all I got to say. Thank you, guys. Love y'all. Kisses.
Hey, Keith and Charlie. This is UVA Hydra calling to let you know that we just made baddies. Woo! See you in Ohio.
Yo, what up? It's the Slugs here. I heard the Aviators lost by 3 to the Summit last night. All Giannis on fraud watch? I don't know. Toby won for Rookie of the Year. Slugs to the top, baby. We're going to Nationals!
You take the field with basically two things, yourself and your cleats. That's why you need the best on your feet. For me, I'm looking for a lightweight cleat that has good cleats along the outside so I can really get a good plant when I'm trying to make a cut. Tokai cleats are specifically designed for Ultimate. The toe stud helps you get in and out of your cuts quickly. You can't get that on a soccer cleat. You also won't find much ankle support in soccer cleats, either or a fabric-based upper that helps cool off your feet, especially with long days on turf. That's why Tokai cleats are the official cleat of the U.S. national team. You try to put your best self on the field, so make sure you're bringing the best with you at tokai-ultimate.com. Welcome back to Deep Look. Well, Keith, the speculation is set to begin on what the Nationals pools are going to look like. Now, we're probably not going to have the pools this week, to be honest. And we're going to get updated rankings Wednesday, and then we're going to maybe start to get some contact out to teams, and then they'll have something out probably by middle of next week. But we're going to have plenty of chances to kind of think about what they're going to look like. So as we take a look now, one thing is easy. The number one overall seed, Keith, it's going to be UNC, and it's going to be in both divisions, and there's not really any questions about that. Maybe if UMass had won their region, there was a chance, but even then, because they lost at Easterns, it wasn't going to happen.
And nobody like played UNC close to try and drag them down or anything.
Right.
In either division.
So in the women's division, UNC 16-0. In the men's division, 25-1. The lone loss coming to UMass at Smoky Mountain Invite. But Keith, after that, it really gets a lot more interesting. Why don't we start on the men's side? Here's the next. I'm gonna go through the top 10. Okay. And this is the current rankings. These have not been updated post regionals, and that will be the most important thing, is to look at those rankings. But for as they stand today, UMass number 2, Texas, Vermont, Colorado, Cal Poly SLO, Pittsburgh, Oregon, Brown, Tufts. That is your top 10. Now, with UMass losing to Brown, Texas losing to Colorado, Vermont losing to UMass, who the heck is the 2 seed? Because I don't think it's going to be Brown, Keith. I think it's probably going to be Colorado.
Interesting. I think it might be UMass still.
Oh my gosh.
I could see UMass Colorado as your 2 and 3. I have no idea who gets the 4. Brown, SLO, Pitt, maybe Pitt. Maybe SLO though. SLO's numbers are going to look pretty good, I think.
It's going to be so tricky. I mean, you are not wrong. It is definitely still possible that UMass gets the 2 seed. There is no rule that the regionals finish has to bind the results. So Brown is not automatically ahead of UMass.
And
that won't happen.
Margins were so narrow.
So narrow. And obviously UMass's resume from the season, fantastic. And they're 18-3. But I don't know, like the way that Colorado played last year, I mean, of course it's going to depend on the rankings. If Colorado somehow ends up being ranked ahead of UMass, which I think is quite unlikely, then I think it's an easy call. But if UMass is ahead of Colorado, I guess maybe you're right, Keith. USAU tends to rely pretty heavily on the rankings.
They do, and I don't know what will happen to Colorado given their result over Texas versus Texas's struggles against WashU. So I think Texas's rating probably going to go down, which makes Colorado's win a little less valuable. So I think if I am not the seed prognosticator that you are. I don't have the powers of projection that you do, but I think I'd go with UNC, UMass, Colorado, and I still don't know exactly who would be 4th. I think I'm going to go with SLO.
I mean, based on the current rankings, it could be Vermont.
It really could be. I mean, yeah,
but it's going to be
definitely
hard
possible. They weren't separated by a lot of rankings points, though.
What are they doing with Brown? I mean, Brown wins this region. Like, you got to give him some credit for that. And do you give them credit beyond the rankings? A lot of it depends on like what's the differential between teams as well. Sometimes that comes into play. But it's going to be fascinating because there's just a lot of teams kind of in the mix in the top 10 that did not win their region. Really, really interesting stuff. On the women's side, a little bit more.
Before you move on, Charlie.
Yeah,
before
sure.
you move on, You mentioned the number 10 team being Tufts, the 4th team out of New England. How do you think that they could be like that highly seeded? Could they move up? I mean, they lost what on Universe to somebody, right? Like,
well, currently they're ranked. Their rating, their power rating is 1824. That was narrowly ahead of Minnesota. Their results at New England Regionals, they lose by 4 to UMass, and they lose by 9 to Vermont. They win obviously by 1 over Northeastern, and then they got pretty sizable wins over Northeastern earlier in the tournament, as well as McGill.
And don't forget, I do think we'll need to include conferences performances here, because those also have not been accounted for in the rankings.
Good point.
They beat Northeastern by 1 there as well. Yes. Yeah, they probably are moving down based on looking at this resume.
Yeah, it just depends on how far, because they still didn't lose to anybody that they shouldn't lose to.
Right.
I think at worst they're a 3 seed at nationals.
Oh, I definitely think that a 3 seed feels very achievable.
And you look down the way and you think about some of the teams that are going to be dangerous, lower seeded. I mean, you've got Cal, Georgia, depending on how much you believe in NC State, they're pretty far down there. I think, is NC State the lowest? No, it's going to be Cornell, of course. Pretty interesting. So it's kind of hard to say more until we have the new rankings. Over on the women's side, obviously UNC number 1, then you've got UBC number 2, Colorado number 3, and with Vermont beating Tufts, I think even if Tufts remains ahead of Vermont in the standings where they are currently 4th and Vermont is 5th, that's an easy call. It's going to be Vermont getting that last 1 seed, but there is a very good chance those two teams are going to face off again at the 4-5 spot in Pool D, Keith.
Well, there's one team I think that you might have to slide up into that spot, and that's Stanford. It's not an insignificant difference in their power rating, which was like a little over 100 points. But Stanford's massive blowout wins at regionals are going to look very favorable. And I could definitely see them moving up into something like the 5 seed. And could I imagine USAU putting their thumb on the scale to avoid a regionals rematch at the 4-5? I could also imagine that.
I don't think
that they tend to do that. I agree.
Rare.
They really don't like to do that. I think that they like to hew to the rankings as much as possible. But I could see it. I could see if it's down to a couple of points in the ratings, I wouldn't be surprised to see USAU move things.
Here's Stanford 0-1 against Tufts, lost by 6 at Stanford, and 1-0 against Vermont, beat them 12-8 at Northwest Challenge. It's going to be interesting. But I do think, based on how big the gap is currently between Tufts and Stanford, I don't see how USAU makes the switch, especially with Tufts having the head-to-head win. So that's gonna be interesting. I agree with you, actually. I would prefer that they just move Stanford up, because I don't want the rematch of those two teams again having to play after having played in the regional final to play again at nationals. But that's the way it goes.
I'm big on once we get to nationals in D1, competitive balance should be the priority.
I'm trying to think about like what other upsets and things are gonna shake up the seeding.
So Carnegie Mellon, obviously the big upset team. I actually don't think that they were ranked. I don't think they had played enough games to be in the final rankings, but I think you could probably approximate them around like where Penn State was, who I think was seated either maybe one spot above them at going into regionals. So obviously they're going to get a boost from beating Pittsburgh, but I still think that's going to put them, near the bottom of the pile. So if you're wondering like what's going to happen with Carnegie Mellon, I think that they're still going to be a bottom seed with like Georgia and Chicago, maybe SUNY Binghamton. I think those are teams that you're probably looking at as the bottom seeds.
According to FrisbeeRankings.com, Carnegie Mellon was number 65. Chicago was number 38. And who did you just say, Keith?
Georgia.
Georgia was 40th. So I think it's pretty clear that Carnegie Mellon's going to be the bottom seed at the tournament.
Makes some sense to me. Let's see, going down the seeding line. I mean, it gets pretty sticky when you get into. I mean, you imagine a team like Carleton or Vermont as your 2 seed. Like that's
not what you'd like
draw.
to see. That's not what you like to see.
No, I mean, I guess we get that every year. Usually the 5 and 6 seed look pretty comparable. So maybe we're used to that. But
I think Stanford's got a real chance to pass Carleton and get the second spot in Pool C, which would put Carleton in Pool B, facing off against UBC. That's going to be a good one. That's what we get. Have Carleton and Stanford played each other this season?
Yes, Carleton beat Stanford. They may have split actually, but Carleton beat Stanford in the final of SBI 11-9.
They're 2-0 against them.
Yeah.
No, I take it back. I mean, I think it's close enough that certainly Carleton's going to get seated ahead of Stanford. So it'll be Carleton likely facing off against Colorado, and it'll be UBC Stanford.
I think the women's division seeding is actually going to be pretty clean when we come down to it. I don't expect a ton of drama.
Going to be a lot of fun. We wait the final rankings to see how it all shakes out. Quickly, just want to pop in. How about the Minnesota Strike over in the PUL? They beat the Gridlock in Minnesota. New York takes its second loss of the season and is now very much looking like they are outside the playoff picture, Keith.
We talked about that New York had a tough road schedule, and that could really impact them. We weren't sure how well teams would travel, but yeah, that is a significant loss. But all the preseason hype around this Minnesota squad, like really coming to fruition, got to get you pretty pumped up about what they could do in the postseason. Where New York is in danger of missing out. We don't know what's going to happen with that wild card spot, but I think they basically kind of have it out of their own hands here. I mean, obviously they still have some key matchups left, but they're going to suddenly have to like really outperform the likes of DC and whatnot in this final stretch run if they want to position themselves to potentially earn that wild card.
Over in the AUDL, Colorado gets a little 2-0 road trip. Pretty nice start for them. They beat San Diego, and then they beat Los Angeles. That was the game of the week. LA looked decent, Keith, but they're not at Colorado's level yet. That's for sure.
No, are you surprised? I don't think either of us are surprised by this outcome.
Not at all.
In fact, I would say that the final score felt a little closer than like the actual game did to me. But
I just want to point this out: the Dallas Legion were trailing at the end of the first half against the Austin Soul, 19-3.
Is that bad?
It's not football, Keith.
Oh.
Somehow they only scored 3 goals in the half. That is just atrocious. I mean, I really would like to see them play Detroit because I think Detroit could get off the schneid if they got the chance to play Dallas.
Yeah, it's too bad. It's too bad there's no betting opportunities there. Interesting weekend though. You get Philly close with DC. You get my Alley Cats pick suffers a blow with a loss to Minnesota. And of course, you get Atlanta over Carolina as well. So, interesting weekend.
Yeah, Atlanta now 2-0. Carolina still kind of like pretty short-handed, but Atlanta's looking pretty good, Keith. I got to give them credit. They've impressed me so far in the early part of this season.
Yeah, they got who's this dude? Everybody's talking Liam Haberfield was New Zealand import or something. And guys just got a freaking cannon out of nowhere. Who is I'm sure our international listeners are thrilled to see him turn up, but I mean, you don't get guys just popping up out of nowhere and delivering like this. Big stage for Haberfield, and is living up to it. And I don't know what Carolina looks like. They have not woken up. They have not shown up yet. They're handing in their assignments,
still
hoping to get C+.
preseason.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with Carolina.
Well, lots more to come. All right, that is going to do it for this week's edition of Deep Look. Join us for our Out the Back segment where we talk about some of the dark horse candidates coming out of regionals weekend number 2, heading into nationals. D3 college championships preview coming up next week. We've got D1 college nationals preview in 2 weeks, and we're getting ready for the postseason in the Western Ultimate League, PUL postseason coming up as well. Lots to get to and a very exciting time. Hey, Keith, the under 24 World Championships are not too far away. We are under 2 months from the start of U24s over in the UK. Cannot wait.
Unbelievable. I think that it's one of the best events of the year. I mean, I really do enjoy the U24 championships. They're a lot of fun.
Stay tuned for more details on that. Broadcasting coming your way from Ultiworld, and really looking forward to bringing you tons of coverage from Nottingham and all of the great young up-and-coming talent from around the world. That is going to do it for this week's show. For Keith Rayner, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long. Congratulations to all of the Nationals teams who qualified. We'll see you in Ohio.